Shekoli Swakweku, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Yatsununi, and I talk about the things that are important to me. And so I wanted to create this video prior to Orange Shirt Day, which is September 30th each year, and to give you some tips and suggestions on things to consider if you're planning an Orange Shirt Day event. Just from my opinion, and as an Indigenous person, Indigenous woman, or Oneida woman specifically, and these are kind of like my disclaimers because my experience and my opinions are going to be different than any other Indigenous person. So take what you will with a grain of salt, but just some things to consider because I've hosted many Orange Shirt Day events within my school, but also within my community. I've been a part of them. So especially this year, I think that's why I wanted to make this video, because I do have a video on my channel from 2 years ago, like one of my very first videos when I first was like, I'm gonna make a YouTube channel. And so I talk about why I wear orange. So I'll link that in the description if you want to check that out. Consider this like an update / extension of that video. So things to consider if you are planning an Orange Shirt Day event, especially this year. 2021 has been such a hard year for Indigenous people, especially with all of the uncoverings of the unmarked graves of the children. It's been really tough and really painful for Indigenous people, and there's a collective mourning that's happening. So please don't put it on Indigenous people to do this. As allies, as people who are interested in learning more, if you clicked on this video, hopefully that's why you're here. If not, if you just have something bad to say, then just click off. But yeah, so that's kind of who I'm speaking to, is the people who just want to know what are some things to think about when they're planning these events. So there's a fine line between like you want to get input and you want to collaborate with Indigenous people, but you don't want to make them do all the work, and you don't want to have it where like, okay, what do you think, or what do you suggest? Because it's like some of us are going to be of the mindset that it's just too raw and too fresh, and maybe we just need to like be relaxed and whatnot, and there might be other people who feel very passionate about it, that it should be more prominent than ever. And so in Canada, this is the first year that it's like been considered like a holiday, which I even think is something that we need to have a discussion about. So we haven't heard like if schools are closing, so I think like public schools, like within the Ontario school board, I think will be open to observe the holiday, hopefully to learn something. But so if you're in school that day, you want to give advance notice. So if you are working with Indigenous students particularly, or you have some Indigenous students, definitely give them some lead time and say, hey, we're thinking about an event, is how like I don't want people to be like, are you okay? But I also just want people to be considerate that like some Indigenous people, it's not going to be a good time, right? It's not going to be something that they want to participate in, or it's not going to be something that they are capable of participating in, just to do with mental exhaustion, like from everything that's been going on. So usually Native organizations will have their own events. So even if your school isn't ready to have its own event, you could spotlight or share about events that are happening in community. So if your city or town has a friendship center, so many urban centers have friendship centers. So I know London has a friendship center, Namrand, Can-Am in Windsor. There's quite a few if you're in an urban center. I know Toronto has a really big one, and let them take the lead on it, and let them lead you if you want to do an event in solidarity to support that or to raise awareness about it. Definitely leverage Indigenous voices and remove the white guilt, right? Like, it's not a time for that. This is a time for honoring residential school survivors and those that didn't. So it's a day of mourning. It's a day of not celebration. Like, that's why it's like hard to like necessarily call it a holiday. It's a day of mourning and a day of understanding of and reflecting upon everything that's happened to Indigenous people over, the last 100 years. That's been so recent too. Like my mom went to Indian day school, so it's something that is really impacts so many people that are alive today, like that are living through this, and the numbers that we're finding with the unmarked graves, like that's adding to the total number. Like all the estimates that they have, like that was just like, in my opinion, that was like fake, because they don't want to uncover the real truth. Like Canada can't admit to all of its wrongdoings. It's like, we'll just say it was this much, so it doesn't seem like we're that bad. Like it's not, but it's gonna be way more than that, and we know that. So taking the lead from Indigenous organizations is a good place to start. Reaching, I wouldn't encourage you to reach out to them, because they don't have the capacity to have a bunch of people reaching out for them. But try joining an event in solidarity, or if they're hosting a sit-in or something, not a sit-in, a teach-in, or something where they're having non-Indigenous people learn what has happened to Indigenous people. Like that definitely is something that will help people be more empathetic and more compassionate and more understanding. Like I think that's like, we're still at the truth part. Like a lot of people are like, oh, we want to be in reconciliation, but we haven't even really given the full amount of the truth. Like there's not enough that went into telling the truth. Like we have all the documents, all the survivors, like not all of them, but many survivors gave their stories and talked about all the bad things that happened to them, and then the government of Canada was like, yeah, let's destroy those. And it's like, no. And that's part of the different call to actions. So the biggest thing too would to look at the TRC call to actions if you're thinking about doing some reading or preparing ahead of time. Like if you can pick one call to action and say, okay, we're gonna have an event where we're all gonna learn more about this one call to action, and we're gonna see about how we can make it happen. And part of that too, if you want to see those calls to action put forward, you have to write letters to the government. You have to lobby the government and tell them, say, hey, this is really important to me, I want this to happen. And if you're a constituent in their riding, then they have to listen to you. Like, and if enough people say it, then hopefully they'll start taking it seriously. Like that's the hardest thing. That the Truth and Reconciliation came out like 5 years ago, and they've moved on maybe 7 of the 94 calls to action. 7 out of 94, failure. That's a failure, Canada. And they just continue to fail Indigenous people, and so those were some of my tips and ideas and suggestions for thinking about events or supporting Indigenous people through and around Orange Shirt Day, which is September 30th. And don't make it a one-off thing too. Last point. Don't make it a one-off thing. Make it something that you're gonna revisit, that you're gonna talk about again. Like it's like, don't have it as a checkbox. If you're thinking about it, it's like, okay, well, this is the day that we need to do something, and then we're gonna do it, and then we're done, and we don't have to talk about Indigenous people anymore. Don't do it. Just don't. Because it's not gonna be genuine, and it's not gonna create real learning. Like you want real learning for people to occur, so then when other things come up, they'll be more understanding. So when there are protests or are things going on, people aren't just gonna be like, oh, it's the Indians acting up again. Like it's gonna be like, no, like they have a lot of reasons why we need to take a stand against the treatment that we're faced within Canada, and unpacking your patriotism to Canada. Like, yeah, I'm not saying people should be ashamed to be Canadian, but understanding what that means and the weight that comes with that. And that was even something that came up with like July 1st, and like people saying like cancel Canada Day. Like we were collectively mourning the loss of so many Indigenous children. And I know some cities and towns still went on with it, but in London on Canada Day, they had a really good turnout, over 10,000 people who went to this event that we honored all of the children that we lost, and that we continue to find out that we've lost, that were unmarked, and trying to help the families that are grieving. And yeah, so that was a really powerful event that happened this summer, but it took a lot of also reflection and strength to just like participate and know that there are more people that are supportive. So hopefully this video is helpful for you. Again, I'm just one Indigenous person with one opinion, one perspective. So if Indigenous people near you are saying something differently, then honor what they're saying. Listen to them and take their lead and leverage their voices. And if you think this video was helpful, please share, like, and subscribe if you're interested in more content that I create. And have a great day. Have a great night. Nagitwa.